Okay, as promised, I'm actually going to go into the custom deck piece now. So, this is Failcraft Cast. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Hammy, and we're playing through the Hearthstone beta at the moment. Hearthstone is Blizzard's TCG. Online trading card game, bits of Magic, bits of other trading card games you might have played, set in the Warcraft universe, and a big bunch of fun. So what I'm doing at the moment is just playing through some of the practice games. You can't unlock the arena. I've intentionally not seen too much about Hearthstone, not watched too many VODs, just so I can enjoy it and not have too much of a spoiler, basically. I've got a little bit of a history playing trading card games. I wouldn't say I was amazing, but I played competitive Pokemon at one stage, and a little bit of dabbling in Magic the Gathering. So if you played either of those games, it should be pretty familiar to you and how it works in terms of mechanics. But if you're not familiar with the mechanics, I will do a complete how-to video at some other stage. Maybe do it as a stream and then share it on YouTube as well. But also, I would very much encourage you, when you get into the beta, or if you get into the beta, to just play through the training mode. It forces you to anyway. And then spend a bit of time just playing practice. I've not played against anyone online. That luring blue ring of invitation, just wanting you to play against an opponent of equal skill. I don't know whether that means whether that's an opponent of equal deck. They might be the same skill as you, but if they have a better deck and they played through more, then they could probably give you a bit of a kicking. Okay, so I don't know why I've gone back into practice, because I was going to the deck editor. Let's go into the deck editor. I'm going to make my very own Mage deck, my custom Mage. So it looks as though Hearthstone decks are 3 cards. By 3 I mean 30. Do beg your pardon. My phone is vibrating. The last remnants of the workday are moving through. Lovely. Okay, Mage deck. So you've got neutral cards, which I guess are sort of the shared. I'm not going to call them. They're not trash cards. Got quite a lot of stuff here. There's your infamous Corehound, War Golem. So a lot of this stuff, I'm guessing just the grey background is like a normal card. I've not even worked out what's rare and what's not rare yet. Right, so let's have a think from the deck that I've been playing with. How am I going to build a deck? There's probably a good bit of draw power. It's good because of the cast powers. Imagine to have some quite low stuff in terms of that you can cast it quite easily. A few instant spells that will do a few damage, instant effects. Naturally, you need minions. I'd imagine you could run an all-ability deck. It doesn't actually say anything. I've not read any rules, as it were, so maybe you need... Ooh, hello. Freeze any character damage by this minion. Do you know what? I'm going to make a deck with some fun cards in, because I've not really...
Tap near the edge of a page to flip through your collection.
Oh, that's what I've done. Okay. So you want a few higher powered, higher cast minions, I'm guessing. Things that sort of do a bit more damage than that. I have no idea what freeze actually does, so I'm only allowed... Ooh, you're only allowed 2, okay. I wonder if that's on a card by card basis, or whether it's just you're not allowed more than 2 of any single card. I'm kind of working out the rules as I'm going along, because I've not actually built a deck yet. So let's see what I can do. I want to play with him because he's new and he's shiny, so let's go for a bit of him. What else Mage-wise is specific? A specific Mage minion? Mages in World of Warcraft. Okay, here we go. Cards to mana cost, so... I think that's just a balancing thing. It doesn't say that you've got a limit. I think, say, if you just had all very, very high cost spells, that might be a bit of trouble. Cool. So, Arcane Missiles. I've only got 2. Does that mean I've only got 2? Maybe it's a limit of 2. I'm not entirely sure. Deck limit 2. Well, I can't use more than 2 because I've only got 2 in my collection. Sorry for this, it's a little bit fumbly, but as you can see, I'm a little bit new to this, so I'm working it out as I'm going along. Forgive me for the rambling. We shall get playing again soon. Frostbolt, deal 3 damage to a character and freeze it. That feels quite... frozen characters lose their next attack. Gotcha, okay. So it's kind of a 1-turn sort of paralysis, so that's the freeze mechanic. If I just read the mouse over, that might help a little bit. Freeze all enemy minions. You know what, that sounds fun. Let's have a couple of those. Arcane Explosion is not a bad sweeper. all of this arcane missiles I'm going to drop. It's quite energy efficient, but it's just not very targeted. So if you draw it lucky at the beginning of the game, it's okay, but that's kind of just a temporary shield with 2 non-attack minions. Arcane Intellect, how many of those am I allowed? I'm only allowed 2. That sucks, because that's a great card. Anything that lets you draw cards is a big Brucey bonus. For those in the UK who may or may not be familiar with Bruce Forsyth. Polymorph has saved me a couple of times, and Polymorph actually, in World of Warcraft, and if you play the game, a Polymorph effect only lasts for a while, or if you damage something that's polymorphed, it breaks and it comes back to being whatever it was before. But in this game, if you polymorph something, it transforms into a 1/1 sheep, and then you can kill the sheep. So it's quite a cheap way of taking out a powerful minion. So for that reason, I actually quite like it. 2 of those, please. Lovely. Fireball. I've had a couple of uses for Fireball as a little snipey card. Because I'm dropping arcane missiles, I'm going to pick up Frostbolt. I'm going to pick up a couple of Fireballs. So we're around about halfway, and we can see that I've deck limited myself for most of the Mage cards anyway. I'm going to leave Mirror Image. I'd probably prefer to have some beasties on the field, some minions on the field instead, who it's very cheap, so it's kind of a good, in a pinch, defend yourself kind of spell, but I'm going to leave that for now just because I'm a total newbie. I don't really know how that would affect you playing, but it feels, at the moment I'm very ability heavy, and I've only got a couple of water elementals, so I need to start fleshing out my deck with a few beasts. So if you've been watching any of my other videos or watching this live stream this evening, you'll have seen a few of the different beasts and what they do. Let's jump on in. Go from 1 first turn all up to sort of the heavy sort of hitting stuff with Stormwind Champion, with other minions get 1 attack and 1 defense. It's quite a late game entry, but that looks interesting. Why would you... Okay, I get it. So same cost, 1 less, and he buffs everyone else, and then this guy just has the extra attack and defense. Let's have a look at other stuff I haven't seen yet. The Frostwolf Warlord. Again, 1/1 for each other friendly minion, so if you're swarming, then he becomes quite tanky for everything else you've got down. The Gurubashi Berserker we've run into already. When he attacks and takes damage from someone else, he gets 3. When someone attacks him during, the opposition's turn, he gets another 3. So he gets very big, very quick. So I think if you play him with any cards that buff the health of minions, then the longer he stays alive, or if you can play him in a healing deck like the Priest, he would be very good actually, because you could take the damage off of him, and you almost don't want to attack him for fear of making him stronger. I've not managed to play with him so far. I had the Nightblades in the Mage deck, the preset Mage deck, which is sort of the 3 when you come in. I quite like that. Ooh, decisions. 2 damage on entry to the field, but a little bit lighter. Interesting. But you can deal 2 damage to anything, it's not just to the enemy hero, so that's the difference between those 2. Archmage, spell damage +1. That feels as though maybe it buffs the... It says spell damage, so I'm guessing your spell cards. Okay, I thought that was going to be my hero spell. But it just means that any spell card I do does an extra damage. That feels interesting. I've got a few that deal damage there. I didn't have any 6s in my deck last time. My preset Mage deck. I'm going to throw one of those in. It feels like a tech card. In TCG, I don't know about Magic, but certainly in Pokemon terms, a tech card is something that is very situational, and you don't have many of them, but you fish for them. You use, either draw power, so you draw a lot of cards, or you have a card that lets you search your deck for a particular card, so you play low numbers of that card, but you pull them out in a particular situation. So say I wanted to do a powered up Fireball, for example. I wanted to get something for 7 damage. I'd draw until I got the Archmage, play the Archmage, and then do my powered up Fireball. So, at the moment I've not seen any cards in this game that let you pick individual cards, because they'd be very powerful. Picking the card that you want at the right time type thing. So I don't know about this Arch. I've dropped one of him in, but I'm still only on 40. You know what? I've got some room to play. So Nightblade has done me quite well so far. but I've never really attacked with them. I'm going to go for a change just to mix it up with 2 Gorashis. My Water Elemental's Force, that's quite a nice balance. I think as my big creature, I'm going to go with an Archmage because I've got lots of casting cards, so a couple of those won't do too much harm. And then what I really need to do now is, because I've got 4s, 5s and 6s, flesh out a bit of the earlier piece of the deck. So let's just go back and visit some other cards I haven't actually got so far. Okay, we've had a little review of that page. We've seen the Dragling mechanic, so that's a swarm card. You know, drop some of those and you're getting your 2/1 Dragonlings into battle as well. And then we should enter, draw a card. Just a bit more wally really. Not as in the Pixar hero, but just a bit more health. A little bit of damage. So the main thing's the card mechanic, I think. Oasis Snapjaw is just kind of it's wall, but it's not got taunt, and that to me feels important. I like taunt cards. It feels good to have a couple of those in there so you can stall. You can suck a bit of damage off your main guys. Ogre Mage, spell damage +1, and he's also a cheaper version of our Archmage, who's 4/7. Ogre Mage is 4/4, so he's tankier later in game. He gives the same effect, but a bit earlier in the game. I'm actually going to remove an Archmage and go with 2 Ogre Magi, because I think his spell damage comes out a bit earlier, it goes well with my spells. I quite like the feel of that, but you need some big hitters late in the game, otherwise if your opponent's got big hitters, then all the spells in the world, I'm either relying on my spells or they might not save me. A big heal across the deck, that would go well in the priest deck. There's one that says if you heal, draw a card. So what happens if I have lots of those guys down and then play one of those? Do I draw 3 cards, 4 cards? So a difficult combination to get out, but that it's not in a mage deck, but if I came back to a priest deck I think I'd visit him. This Darkscale healer. Let's see what I get when I come through. Taunt, a Biddy Bay Bodyguard, that's quite a nice little tank. For the extra energy, the extra mana, you get 2 extra attack but less health. I've felt good with those Sedgins, and everything seems to be 2 a deck. That's an offensive card. I've not played with it yet, doesn't mean I can't in future, but we've seen him in a couple of the games I've played. Glass Cannon, Magma Rager, 5 damage 1, so that's really, that's the kind of thing where if your opponent sees you drop it and it takes a turn to come into play, then they'll just kill it. So I know that one of the decks gives that creature charge. It's an instant spell card, so I think Magma Rager would go well with that. You know, you drop it into play, you give it charge so it can attack first go. You don't need to worry about it getting killed with its 1 health. You can just get straight in there and do the 5 damage with it. Raid Leader was in my deck. Your other minions have 1 attack, can get killed quite easily, get picked off. Might be useful in more swarmy decks, I feel. If you've got a lot of low, level characters, he's given me a help in a couple of Buffy situations, so I might come back to him. Swarm character in terms of summoning additional minions onto the battlefield. He seems like a cheap tank, the Ironfare Grizzly, the lower version of the Sedgin Shieldmaster that we're already packing. I think I'll leave him out for early protection, a deck that needs early protection. And what I'm doing here, it's not the most scientific deck, but I'm kind of trying to pull something together based off what I know. This is not the most tactical thing in the world. I mean, things that you could do are look at, are you trying to stall, for example, until you can bring out your big guys, in which case I could have all early tanks. I could pick him, I could pick the Sedgin Shieldmaster, and all I'd be doing is playing minion tanks until I could get my spells set up, or until I could get my big bruising 6 or 7 high magic cost things out later in the game. At the moment I'm playing quite a spell heavy deck. I'm going to be zapping with a lot of spells. It feels as though maybe I might want to focus more on tanks actually. That could make sense. Things that can protect me while I'll do more damage with my spells. But then you've only got 2 of every spell card. You're physically limited to the amount of spells that you can play. So maybe that'll be lifted. Maybe this is just because I'm in training. Maybe the 30 cards goes up to 60 as a deck. I don't know. But it's I don't know whether it's limiting my tactical options, but the game design is certainly mixing it up and making sure that you do have a decent degree of, you know, minions and a decent degree of other things at this stage. Shattered Sun Cleric. That's just a one-off buff, but we saw the effectiveness of that. If you play a few of those and buff something up quick, it hurts. With a 3, he's a real cheap tank. Very cheap tank, actually. In fact, so cheap. Maybe I'll get a couple of it. I might come back to the old gorilla. Drop him to play, deal damage. He seems just like a middlish damage card. Another cheap spell damage card. I'll always have some spell damage in play. He's not a tank though. He'll stay alive for a little bit. My early guys, I was trying to do a bit of damage with them and trade. He's not going to be a good trading card. Oh, that was an unwittingly bad pun. I'm really sorry. I was having some fun with just the early draw power of Novice Engineer. I'm going to go for 2 of those because I just like getting cards in my hand. I'm not really swarmy, so I'm avoiding these swarm cards. Another cheap spell damage card. He feels kind of tradey. Charge for an instant hit. Those were quite useful as well. I'm going to go for a couple of Kobold Geomancers as well, just for something a little bit different. I've got my spell damage in. Most of the spells I can't play till later, so I'm probably not beyond sort of, yeah, you know what. At the moment, what I'm doing is kind of protecting myself until I can play more heavy spell damage late in game, if I'm even being that scientific. Stentos Board. Charge of Voodoo Doctor was the health card that we saw in the priest deck. Restore some health, and there's another one which is if someone's health is restored, draw a card. Destroy your opponent's weapon. Interesting against warrior decks. Again, that feels like a tech card. Against, like, there's an Illidan deck in the tutorial that's quite tough. That Bloodfen Raptor just felt like a generally good early beastie. So I'm going to take 2 of him for that reason. 3-2, 2. Good trades, good early drop. Felt pretty good to have in. Now we've got the onesies. That was lots of instant snipey damage. We saw that in a deck. So if you're swarming with Murlocs, that's good. A Murloc Raider is just, this is cheap early damage. He's a cheap early tank. Insta damage again if you want to do lots of early insta damage. Heals, it's kind of a cheap heal. And I've got 3 cards left I can drop in. Do you know what? I think I've got quite a good amount of creatures. You're going to be wanting a fairly steady pull of creatures. I think at least a third of your deck with creatures is good. Based off solely nothing about apart from my very short experience. So, what do I like? What do I know and love? I've gone with those Geomancers for something a bit different. Bloodfen Raptors, I've got Geomancer, I've got a lot of early game stuff coming out there. I've got a little bit there. I've got nothing in the 3 range, so for that reason I'm going to grab something in the 3 range. I like that tank. So I don't really have my raid leader, do I? I don't have a couple of Wolf Riders. Let's jump straight in there with I need something that's 1 cost, because I've just really got nothing with 1 cost now. Let's say nice and early.
That deck looks solid. Take her out for a spin.
Yeah. Okay, my first deck is done. Woo, custom mage.